We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. The way to the end zone, and Georgia is going to conquer the Crimson Tide.
So how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told them.
Hope it didn't take that long again. Go Dogs.
Big dogs and little dogs, what is going on? It is the 100 Sanford podcast. We are back for another episode. It's your guy, Lamar Lovelace. I'm here with Big George Foster. We're still waiting for Graham Coffee, still waiting for Trigger Trey, and we got a guest in the building. But what's going on, Foss?
Getting closer and closer, baby. We getting closer and closer. It's about to be mayhem at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm excited. You know, we got another, how many days is that? What is today? Is Wednesday?
I think we got, let's see, something. I was looking on Twitter. Everybody keeps doing these little countdowns with, former players or whatever. I want to say maybe 11 days, 10 days. Yeah, we're around there.
Yeah, that'll fly by.
Yeah, it's going to fly by, man. Especially
I'm really interested in seeing how these young dogs do their thing, man. We got a lot of young dogs. Just, we'll get to, Kirby. I didn't realize the team was that young.
I mean, when you lose that many dudes, you're just young, right? And it's funny because, we were listening to Kirby's press conference, and I think somebody brought up, they said, hey, how many of your young guys are going to have to play? And Kirby kind of broke it down. First of all, the freshmen, probably half the freshmen are going to get time. But then when you start looking at the actual team itself, heck, man, it's filled with nothing but freshmen and sophomores. You're going to have a sprinkle of juniors, you know what I mean? But those guys are going on to the NFL, the good ones. And then you got the seniors, and the ones that are still there that are seniors are guys that, either could have gone on to the league or maybe might have been a fringe guy, free agency opportunity. But no, come on back and get that extra time in. So, yeah, we're young. It's exciting, though. I think it's real exciting right now to see what this team is going to be like heading into 22.
Yeah, it's going to be – it's crazy how they still have a chance to be very, very, very good, but they're – it's going to be a different team. It's going to be offense is going to look familiar, but it's going to be a different team on defense, and that's half your team. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a lot of new guys that have to help out in a lot of positions. A lot of guys are going to have to step up in a lot of positions and not just step out. So there's going to be some guys that's going to have to be good players for us. And then still wet behind the ears. But, a lot of times, you never know. You roll the dice and you throw the young cats in there, and a lot of times they answer the bell. Kind of like, another, Georgia team, the Braves. They call up some youngins. They've been doing it this year, calling up some youngins, and hey, them youngins, they took the opportunity and they've been balling out. So we hope the same thing happens with the dogs.
I mean, well, when you look at it now versus when you played, or even a few years back, even with the Georgia roster, when you got guys that are these top 4 stars, top 5 stars, and all they're doing is going to agility places and working out all the time. I mean, these dudes are coming in physically; they're ready. A lot of them
ready.
But really, it's the endurance. It's understanding the playbook, being able to get into that playbook fast, understand it, and like we were talking even before the show, right? Being able to process that information as quick as possible to be able to play, to react the way you need to react, and to make your impact on a game felt before another guy can.
Yeah, they're gonna these kids. They different. They different from me and my peers. We didn't come in like this. These cats coming in, they rip the shreds. The lineman 330 pounds without a lick of fat on them. It's different. So physically, a lot of these kids are ready. They just got to learn how to compete, man. Competing at a high level, competing at an optimum level in the SEC for a demanding coach, demanding program, with the likes of, Nick Saban and Kirby and company. It takes a lot. it's a lot mentally and it's a lot physically. You know what I mean? You're gonna hit. You know, you probably hit more than you used to hit. You know, you're gonna train like you never trained before. You know, you're gonna have a lot on your plate with the playbook that you've never had before. You know, high school was, hey, well, maybe it's a little different now, but I know, hey, we ran the veer. We had about 5 plays. You know, it was what it was. You know, I got to college, and you know, everything was moving so fast. You got to learn the plays and audibles and all that stuff. You know, it's a lot, and I heard it's a lot, like really a lot that Kirby puts on the defense to learn, and so these young cats, you know, it might be overwhelming, but hey, we need them. That's what happens when you're a good team. You're gonna lose good players.
Facts.
It is what it is.
Facts. But hey, I'm going to touch on that. But before we get into it, the 100 Sanford podcast is powered by the Roll Up Network and our sponsor, Gramco, the Delta 8 company based out of Florida, founded by college football junkies just like you and me. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Delta 8, but you need to be. Gramco is the absolute leader in the field. They got some phenomenal products. They got the Wake and Bake coffee. They got the gummies. They got the vapes and more. Simply the best on the market. So go over to thegramco.com right now. Use the promo code SANFORD25 for 25% off. No medical card is needed. Shipping is quick and discreet, but you must be 21 or older to order. So try them today. That's right, thegramco.com, thegramco.com. Use the promo code SANFORD25 and you'll get 25% off. You won't be disappointed. But again, I'm going to mention it. If you take that test, you're going to fail that test. You're going to be like old boy out there with the San Diego Padres failing Tatis failing test and be out for a while. But 100 Sanford podcast is not going to take the rap for that one. But going back to what you mentioned, in terms of these guys being ready, somebody asked Kirby that question in the press conference. They said, you know, about your freshmen being prepared. Why is it that a guy like Bowers was prepared, Pop was prepared when he finally got the opportunity to play? And he mentioned something. He said, you know, you got to remember these guys didn't play as seniors, but when it can also depend when you come in. You know, Bowers came in the spring. I think it was early entry, right? So he had 15 practices underneath his belt, those mental reps, being able to see, even if you can't be on the field, you can see the speed of the game and you can realize, whoa, I'm in a whole nother planet right now, versus some of these guys coming in, you know, entering spring camp, stepping on campus, leaving mom and dad, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you're seeing these boys flying around for the very first time. Your head's got to be spinning in June. So these younger guys coming in at that point, there's no way, in my opinion, they could play unless they're just freaks. You got to be a super freak to be able to play at that level.
Yeah, and you got to be, you know, some of those guys are just very smart. You know, people underestimate the intelligence of athletes sometimes. You know what I mean? There's some really smart kids come in. You got guys like Nakobe Dean, who's freaking what was he?
Engineering major, right?
Engineer, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like they, you know, that's the type of pedigree, that's the type of guy you know, that can contribute, you know, early, you know. But yeah, I can remember my first day getting out there with the defense, and we were doing like some drills and like it's just freshmen out there, and even just being freshmen, the cats I came in with, we doing O versus O-line versus D-line, like little pass rush drills, and like my head was spinning, man. Those guys, because they get to just see ball and get the ball, come off the rock, and just go. And you know, as offensive lineman, you know, I had to get the technique together, know what I'm doing, and all that stuff, and it was a lot. So, it's going to be interesting to see with the young guys coming in.
How different was it back then when you were playing for some of these kids to go to a lot of these camps? I mean, they go to like, you know, all-star camps where you get a chance, right, to go up against another dog that's going to be on the other side, right, and you're getting that work. I would anticipate that when you were playing, heck, there wasn't a lot of camps that you're going to go to where you're going to see, okay, a top 5-star, a top 4-star, whatever he was, but some dude on the other side being able to get off like that, besides maybe somebody across from you on your own team. It had to be different.
Yeah, it was a lot different. I had a chance I went to an O-lineman camp. I didn't even know anything about that. And Carson Newman, one of my coaches had heard about it, and he figured there. And that's what he did. But other than that, man, we didn't know anything about these rivals camps and 5-star camps and it's camps out the wazoo now.
Yeah.
Everybody got a camp. And you see a lot of good talent at these camps. And these guys are, they're facing guys while still in high school that are top talents. I got there and I got to Georgia and I'm facing my first 5-star or whatever. I don't even know if we did stars back then, but I had a really good class that came in with me. And so those guys were talented and they gave me a run. My head was spinning. But these guys, I feel like these guys are much more prepared physically than, my generation was. And some of these high school offensive defensive have gotten, maybe a little bit more sophisticated than what I had growing up. So they probably come in a little bit mentally, more advanced than my generation did too. But at the same time, you're dealing with a Kirby Smart. You know what I mean? I've heard about, his system and all. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And so, but I'm glad we got some guys in early. So they're not, I imagine their head isn't swimming as much, and they'll be able to help us a lot this year.
When you just mentioned something, you said, they got a Kirby Smart, and it's got to help. And it probably kind of goes back to what Nick Saban built too. To have guys with that much experience as position coaches, though, at the same time, when you got a Muschamp, you know what I'm saying? You got Fran Brown, who's the cornerback coach. You got Schumann, who's the linebacker coach. Guys that have logged a lot of hours. That's got to help a defense too, though, with these younger guys coming in, getting them prepared, because one, they're all going to take the lead of Kirby. I mean, we know that. Just like an Alabama team, they're going to take the lead of the head coach and Nick Saban. But being able to kind of push that down and so that your assistants are able to give off that same energy, that same ability to be able to teach, that same ability to be able to convey what they want on a game-by-game basis. I think that's the reason why they're probably more prepared than some other schools when you look at it, because a lot of these guys don't have that same preparation. That's the first thing. And second, they don't have the same logged-in hours as assistants at some other programs that a Georgia is going to have. So I just thought about it when you brought that up in terms of how Kirby prepares, and that's all you do hear. I mean, you hear that he's almost maniacal when it comes to the way he wants things done and what he's going to put on his young players and put on all of his players to be prepared. And I guess I kind of agree with that, where I think sometimes you can be over-prepared, but I'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. And I think that's the way he's looking at it.
Yeah, he expects a lot from the guys, and that's why the guys that can handle it will play, and the guys that can't, they won't. Take it a step further, he demands a lot from those assistant coaches too.
Yeah, facts.
So everybody in the building is held to a high standard. Whether you fix food, whether you clean the building, I'm sure Ron Corson in the training room, who's been there for I don't know how many years, 20 plus 30 years probably. I'm sure he expects a lot from his staff, and it's a really high level program going on there, and you can tell by the product that gets put out on the field that's what they expect, and they're looking for greatness. You get the idea that Kirby, like you said before, they're doing the hunt. They're not the hunted. There ain't no. We're not talking rebuilding. We're not talking none of that. He expects, a certain level of play and a certain level of coaching from everyone in that building, and that's what's got to happen.
Yeah. Well, we just had a second scrimmage. Everybody's excited about that because you mentioned it already. I mean, we're getting closer. And I'm going to just say one word, which kind of sums up to me what the press conference sounded like. Progression. Last week, we heard Kirby firing off on the defense. We're not there. We're not ready. I don't see this. I don't see that. This whole press conference, I mean, he must have said it maybe 4 to 5 times. We're progressing. We're progressing. And it's kind of like, how you're a parent, you don't want to beat your kid down mentally, emotionally. You kind of build them up almost into a crescendo where it's like, okay, now it's time to get to class. Now it's time to go take that test. And it's like, that's the way he's doing it. I got to appreciate that, because when he was asked about the defense, he was talking about how they're playing a little bit better. He didn't give him complete praise, right? He didn't say, oh yeah, we fired off the ball. We got a lot of pressure. It was like, okay, we're getting better. Quarterback, same thing. Defending the quarterback room in terms of, hey, we got Stetson at number 1, but yes, we got a number 2, we got a number 3. We're getting better. We're ready. Running back, same thing. So what did you hear from the press conference that kind of maybe impressed you, or maybe, gave you room to think about anything that's going on in terms of the program at this particular time?
He talked about the last scrimmage having ebbs and flows, and that's what you want as a head coach. You don't want a lopsided practice. You know what I mean? That mean one side of the ball, or one area, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, somebody's struggling. If you have,
right.
if one side, I've never been around a coach that's happy with a dominant practice by one side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're livid. They're livid at that.
Right.
If you have a practice where offense dominates and defense is trash, that's a bad day. That's a bad day, and vice versa. If offense is trash and defense is balling out, that's a trash day. I heard him say ebbs and flows.
Mm-hmm.
That mean it was, everybody made some plays. Everybody made some good plays. Everybody made some bad plays, and that's kind of the balance you want. You know what I mean? Because everybody offense not gonna make all the plays, and defense not gonna make all the plays. But if both sides of the ball make plays individually, you can deal with that. And so that leads me to believe that they are getting close to where they want, and he's ready to move on to future opponents. I don't know if that was something to think about, and if I heard it right, it seemed like he said future opponents in Oregon, or I don't know if he said future opponents in Oregon. I'm thinking, man, is he thinking that far ahead? But coaches do. They have to stay ahead. Like they can't work on the next opponent after they can't start working on the next opponent after the Oregon game. It's too late.
Right. No, I think he was thinking, because I think he brought it up. I think it was last press conference. He said we only think about that first opponent. I mean, I think he brought that up, but I think what it was the context that somebody had asked him about playing Oregon as the first game. And he said, okay, so then we're starting to focus on getting ready to play Oregon and the level of competition. Because, I thought about that myself. I mean, Kirby has been ahead of the curve more than a lot of other teams out there, right? He mentioned even before the shakeup in terms of college football, Oklahoma and Texas getting ready to join the SEC, USC and UCLA trying to join the Big Ten and all that. We wanted to schedule big boy teams. He was like, what's the sense in playing cream puffs if, I'm paraphrasing, and then you got to go into the SEC schedule. You might as well be prepared. You want to play the best, be able to play the best. And then he was talking about, hey, the opportunity to play Oregon, which is a top-tier team. I don't care what anybody thinks about it. I mean, they're still a top 25 team that has the ability to upset anybody on any given day. I think he was more or less focused on that. One thing that was pretty interesting, too, is that he keeps talking up Stetson. And I haven't really heard any bad practices from Stetson. He said, he's missed some throws like any quarterback is going to do. But I think that's important, quite honestly, that everybody needs to know. And I think Kirby's trying to make it known as well for Dog Nation, for the team, for everybody. This is Stetson's team. You might as well get behind it. There's no sense in asking questions about a backup quarterback, you can ask all you want. This is Stetson's squad. So, and I think he even mentioned, he said, the backup quarterbacks, he said they have things that Stetson has in each of them. Mm-hmm. Each guy has certain characteristics. So,
they just got to learn. What up, Trey?
What's good with y'all, man? Oh, I got the snacks ready and everything.
Man, I ain't got no snacks, man. I got this water. This month I'm still acting right. You know what I mean? With my veggies and fruits and meats and stuff, so I ain't got no good snacks. Snackavelli will be back next month.
Snackavelli.
I've been on that water stuff. I drink like a gallon of water a day.
Hey, it's good for you, man. Make you feel good. But yeah,
it's good for the heart.
Wait a minute, man. You're gonna drink a gallon of water, but then come up here with a king size bag of Lay's potato chips?
What's wrong with that?
Hey, my man say balance, man. They got that balance.
It balance out, man.
You talking about balance, man. Well, yeah, Trey. I like it. I'm feeling what I'm hearing about Stetson. Yeah. The thing about Stetson is Stetson is about Stetson, 9th year in college. He got stuff.
What is me?
He got everything. He got everything. He's seen it all. He's played. He's played major college football. He's won a national championship. He played community college or JUCO. He played high school. Like, he's seen it all. He has whatever you need at that quarterback position. And I think that's important. You know what I mean? He's not going to be a deer in the headlights at any time. You want a guy that you can depend on. And I think that's the biggest thing with this staff. They believe in Stetson and they trust him. Yeah. That's the main thing. Trust is big in football. Coaches have some ego, and coaches have some, they want to be right. You know what I mean? And so they ain't gonna put you out there with their name on the line if you're not ready to do your thing. You know what I mean? I think that's how they feel about Stetson.
Facts. Well, fellas, we got to take a break from talking about what we wanted to talk about, and because we got a guest in the building, none other than Rob Mosley from GoDucks.com. He's the editor out there, but also a reporter. So we wanted to get into Ducks. We wanted to get into the Oregon Ducks because they got our old guy out there, Dan Lanning. Rob, what's going on?
I'm not sure there's many times Dan Lanning's been referred to as an old guy before. So it's been a trip. I'm 10 years older than he is, so it's been a trip making that adjustment. But I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Everything is good, man. We're excited. We've just been talking about getting ready for this season. I mean, we're about 10 games or 10 days away, 11 days away. We're getting all excited, getting all ramped up. But we wanted to bring you on and kind of find out what's going on with Oregon out there. It's our first game playing you guys and you guys playing us, and spring practice is winding down. So tell us a little bit about what's going on out there.
Yeah, we're midway through the third week of preseason camp. Game week coming up, starting Monday. I think there's, probably a sense at this point that you guys have been in the camp mentality for long enough. They're ready to start focus on an opponent. That's for sure. I think, Dan Lanning's big on kind of be where your feet are and get 1% better each day. That's kind of his slogan, his mantra with these guys. So I don't know if it would be right to say he's discouraging them from starting to look ahead, but certainly wanting to keep the mentality of, hey, we're still in camp. There's still time but before you get really knee deep into full game prep. But I think guys are certainly ready to start focusing their attention on another team. That's for sure.
Well, you covered the Ducks for a while. What is the difference so far with Mario Cristobal leaving last year to Dan Lanning, coming from a national championship program with Kirby Smart? What have you seen? Have you seen a mentality change program wise? What are your thoughts on that so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything's cyclical a little bit, and it's also, so with that in mind, and also the fact that, particularly for somebody like me who's not in every single meeting, it can be easy to overgeneralize. But, I think when Willie Taggart was the coach here a few years ago, I mean, it was he was a little more, he kind of freed the guys up, I think, a little bit to enjoy themselves a little bit more. He wanted a little bit livelier attitude. Mario Cristobal, very much about business. We heard him say over and over again, practice like pros. And, certainly all these head coaches want guys to have kind of a pro mentality when it comes to getting the most out of their preparation. But, I think guys to listen to players, they feel like they're having a little bit more fun right now, bring a little bit more joy to the field. It's easy when you've never lost a game under your current head coach. The vibes are this is the time of year every team in college football is loving where they're at. Hope springs eternal, even in the fall. But yeah, I think guys feel like they're able to have some fun when they come out to practice every day. On a practical level, his commitment to different elements of special teams and the way that pops up throughout practice is different than what I've been used to. I've been coming to practice off and on for 20-something years around here. So a little different than what I've seen. It seems like there's elements of special teams in almost every drill they do that's not like, 11 on 11 offense, defense. And then I think kind of like they do out there, having your head coach with a microphone in his hand for big chunks of practice is different, just to hear him, to hear kind of his thoughts just as reps are happening, as drills are happening is fun, entertaining, insightful. You get a sense of how hard he drives players, but also why guys connect with him so well and appreciate that from him, because the way he can kind of meet guys on a personal level too, and so that's been fun as well. So, on some level, some parts of football are universal, right? So a lot of it looks familiar, and then you try to see little things that different ways guys put their own stamp on things.
Rob, let me ask you something. I'm George, by the way, and how have the players adjusted? I feel like in my mind, we all think like that. We all think down south is where all football, where God tier football is played.
Sure.
We're the roughest, toughest. It don't get no better in the South. And in some ways, that's the truth. It is what it is, and it's been that way for 100 years. How have the guys adjusted to the way Lanning does things as opposed to where another coach may have done things? I know Cristobal has some history in the southeastern part of the conference, with football and whatnot. But is there any difference? Do you see? I guess I'm just asking, how have the players adjusted in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that this program has been on such a wild trajectory the last 20, 25 years, really, but then probably particularly the last dozen or so, it's been kind of a different level. I think since Chip Kelly was the head coach here, in 2009, 2010, 2011, probably the biggest name player on those teams then was probably LaMichael James. And then if you guys remember DeAnthony Thomas, who was really good. DeAnthony was kind of the bridge to Marcus Mariota. And, so there were a couple different teams in there that played for national championships. And so I think this program started to think of itself on a national level and to kind of break out of a regional mentality. I think for those of us who, I graduated from Oregon in 1999. So I go back a little longer than those years, but through the nature of my job, I've really gotten a sense for a deeper history. And I think, a long time, this program just wanted to be sort of competitive on the West Coast and be kind of relevant regionally. Compete for conference titles, things like that. And that really shifted, again, maybe a dozen years or so ago. I think, the program itself internally, the athletic department, the fan base started to have a sense that, no, we can be a player nationally and kind of break out of that regional mentality. And then I think particularly with Mario Cristobal, you have to have great players if you want to have great teams. And I think, as you alluded to, there's a lot of talent down south. And so, Oregon used to be, built primarily on the San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles, great players in the Northwest. And then, you might go to Arizona for a player or two. You might go to Colorado for a player or two, maybe Texas. Michael James is from Texas. And honestly, getting into Texas, getting Michael James there, Darren Thomas was a quarterback on those great teams, including the 10 team that went unbeaten and played Auburn for the national championship. Getting into Texas kind of was the first step toward recruiting nationally. And so that jump from kind of thinking of the program as a program that could compete nationally to one that could compete for recruits nationally, I think changed the way folks thought. And Mario Cristobal took that to another level. I mean, he really wanted, that's his calling card. I mean, he's just as good of a recruiter as you'll find. And I think part of why Dan Lanning was thought to be such a great fit for this job now is, he has that same mentality that you have to get great players wherever they are. You have to go get them for your program. And so all of that is a really long-winded way of saying I think the guys who are here now on this roster, I think of themselves as players who can compete with teams down south, teams in the Big Ten, whoever, because as recruits, they were measuring themselves against all those guys at, the 7-on-7 camps and the lineman camps and the quarterback camps and all that. And so, I think the mentality of guys who play here now is certainly a lot different than guys who played at Oregon 15, 20, 25 years ago, but different also than I think most programs out here in that they really do feel like going to play an SEC program or Big Ten program, you're not out of place. You're not playing up. With respect to the traditions out there, obviously, those speak for themselves. But, like we saw last year, Oregon can go to Ohio State and win. That you don't have to feel like you take a back seat to those programs. It doesn't mean you can take anything for granted. It doesn't mean you're always going to win those games. But you feel like you at least you go into them kind of on a level playing field and you've got a shooter's chance, even against programs with traditions of kind of what you're talking about and that think of themselves along the lines of what you're talking about.
Makes sense.
Rob, before Trey, because I know he had a big question to ask you, and especially going into this game, what is the Achilles heel for Oregon? Because for years, people have thought of them as being, okay, this next juggernaut program, especially with USC being down, being able to take that mantle of the Pac-12 and roll. And heck, I called it last year. I said, Oregon was going to go into Ohio State and win that game, and you guys did, right? What's the Achilles heel? Why can they not get to that level, that top-tier level that they want to get to, and hopefully the Dan Lanning can get them to?
I think for several years, a big issue, and this kind of alludes to the previous question, a separator for SEC teams in particular, but also for a lot of other elite programs wherever they are, is defensive line talent. And, Oregon made it to the Rose Bowl the 2009 season, played Ohio State, and Ohio State's defensive line was a difference maker. Nick Fairley, Auburn's big defensive lineman in 2010? He was a game wrecker, and that was a really close game that, he might have made the difference in that game. I think, the Ohio State national championship game, that was an Oregon team that, felt like it could score on anybody, and the Ducks dropped some passes early, weren't able to put some points on the board. Buckeyes were able to get rolling with Zeke running the ball. And again, kind of the line of scrimmage just kind of got worn down and couldn't flip it that way. So I think there's been a huge effort here the last 4 or 5 years to try to get to a place at the line of scrimmage. And obviously with Mario Cristobal, particularly on the offensive line, that's a signature position of his. But the way he recruited on the defensive line, I think you're seeing Coach Lanning try to do that as well, and has brought in a couple transfers. He hired the defensive line coach Tony Tuioti from Nebraska, who was followed by a couple players from out there who have enhanced the depth here. So I think there's really been this sense that if you can't compete at the line of scrimmage, for all the speed that you can try to recruit out of LA and various other places around the country, if you can't compete at the line of scrimmage with, SEC teams, Big Ten teams, the elite teams from other conferences, you're going to have a hard time breaking through. So it's not to suggest Oregon's all the way there because, I think there's very much this sense until this program wins a national championship, that question is going to be there. Why can't this team kind of take that last final step? Obviously, that's really hard to do no matter who you are. But I think trying to kind of even the scales there at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, but maybe particularly on the defensive line and dealing with, but also dealing with other elite defensive linemen has been a key to a game like that Ohio State game where you're able to go there and go toe to toe and hold your own.
I trust your football acumen.
If nothing else, I'm faking it well.
that's the difference between the SEC and the rest of the country.
Yeah,
the trenches. They recruit the trenches better than anyone else. They get those talented guys in there. Like it's not the downplay skill guys. I'm an ex-offensive lineman, so yes, I'm partial. I'm
right.
Biased, but you almost can get at least decent skill guys a dime a dozen. You know what I mean? These guys can run. You don't find many big, strong, fast, smart guys that can run. They just don't happen.
Yeah.
And so you hit the nail on the head. If a team that can't compete at the line of scrimmage, they don't have much of a chance on the big scale.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, I think with Mario Cristobal as the head coach here, there's really, kind of an attitude adjustment up front. I think, when Chip Kelly was the head coach here, there was this sense that you could scheme away from elite guys, and they almost did that successfully against, Fairleigh and that Auburn team. It took a field goal at the final gun for Oregon to win that, or for Auburn to win that national championship game back in 2010. So I think there was, you came as close as you possibly could to finally breaking through there. And again, kind of scheming around some issues up front there in order to take advantage of your speed and make that be a difference maker. But I think when Willie Taggart got here and then Mario took it to another level, it was a sense that, no, we're not going to try to scheme around anything. We're going to recruit guys and develop an attitude that we can go toe to toe with anyone. And so again, I think Dan Lanning now is the next guy who takes the baton there and is like, okay, yeah, we're gonna put our own stamp on things, but we're not going to get away from that too. And just the profile of guys, but Penei Sewell was kind of the centerpiece of a great offensive line class a few years ago, and I'll never forget the first day of practice when that class got here, walking out there going, okay, those guys look different than other offensive line recruits that I've ever seen arrive in Eugene. And Brandon Dorless is a guy on this defensive line who started to draw some attention as a draft prospect. And, it was kind of the same thing. I think he was a year later. There was a defensive line class, same thing. Some guys showed up as like, okay, those guys just look different than kind of the average profile of when a lineman would show up in Eugene. So that kind of, illustrates, I think, the effort that's been made to change the profile and be able to try to hold your own in the trenches.
Trey, you had something?
Oh yeah, I had a question because I know Bo Nix transferred from Auburn to Oregon. How has he transitioned to with a new coach and a new play style? Because we both know Dan Lanning doesn't run to certain offenses, does Auburn run, because they run spread. I'm pretty sure Dan Lanning is probably like a more balanced pro style type of coach.
Well, the offensive coordinator he hired, Kenny Dillingham, was on the Auburn staff when Bo Nix was a freshman there. And so there is some kind of staff player familiarity there that I'm sure has benefited all parties involved. It's been an interesting dynamic because there's a couple young quarterbacks here who were top recruits in the last couple of years, Ty Thompson and Jay Butterfield. And, Bo Nix certainly wasn't anointed when he got here. I mean, I think everybody has respect for the fact that, the body of work he's got at this point, based on his experience, is different than those other two guys. But, I think it remains competitive. And I have the sense that on September 3rd and potentially not before.
Think that battle is over yet then?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't say that for certain, I mean, I think if nothing else, I think the coaches are going to play their cards close to their vest for strategic reasons. But yeah, I can say quite honestly out from the game where in some ways it feels like the game's, right around the corner. In some ways it still feels like it's a ways off, because until you kind of get to game week, you still feel like you're kind of in that Groundhog Day camp mentality. And you don't start talking in terms of this has been decided, that's been decided, because you just want guys competing every single day.
Yeah, I was actually under the impression, just I guess because I've heard so many people talking about Bo Nix over the last couple of weeks, I thought that maybe he had been announced as a starter. So that's my mistake.
No, I think, like I say, I think it's natural, I think, for everybody to look at the body of work he has and say that just makes a lot of sense. I certainly understand people making that assumption, but it also is just an assumption, until they try it out on the field.
Not to ask you to give like a long kind of dissertation on Kenny Dillingham's offensive philosophy, but kind of from what we saw under Mario, like you were talking about, real line of scrimmage focus, to Dillingham, sort of what are kind of the differences and what they're going to try and do as a unit?
Yeah, I'd be getting way out over my skis if I tried to suggest I was any sort of an X and O guy. That's not my certainly not my background at all. I mean, I'm a journalism graduate, not a football graduate. That's for sure. So, yeah, no, but I certainly think they want to be multiple. They want to take advantage of a lot of different weapons. I mean, from the moment this staff took over, I think particularly the receivers and tight ends were excited about the prospect of maybe the ball being in the air a little bit more. Sure. Just feeling like kind of, in the last couple of years when the Cards were down, the ball was probably going to be run between the tackles, because that's where, the sense was that a strength, it was a strength of the team. And it was also just sort of philosophically, kind of what that staff believed in. And I think there's again, certainly an optimism amongst some of the other skill position players, but also just listening to the staff, a sense that, these guys are going to open it up a little bit more, have a few more wrinkles than we've seen from this offense the last couple of years. And I know the fans out here are pretty excited. They felt like, tight, low-scoring games. When you win most of them, winning's fun. But I think people also got used to, again, this team's reputation being made 10, 15 years ago for putting up a lot of points. Yeah. I think, a renaissance of lighting up the scoreboard a little bit more would be most welcomed by a lot of the fans out here.
Well, that's interesting. Go ahead, Graham.
No, I was saying, I mean, just I think kind of the ethos of Oregon football to most people is, big explosive plays and, right, snapping the ball with 35 seconds on the play clock and that kind of stuff.
Oh, see, I was going to touch on the defense, because that's pretty interesting, because, Mario's an offensive guy. Now you bring in a defensive mind. And full disclosure, I think I told you before, Rob, one of my friends growing up, best friends, was Joe Moorhead, who was the offensive coordinator. So I was looking for more of his offense to really, show itself, but it didn't really get that opportunity.
No, I think one of the great kind of, a story that hasn't got enough attention for the way that it impacted this team last year was his health issues and just, what he was going through. Mm-hmm. Missed a game at Stanford, and not coincidentally, that's, kind of the first loss of the season for Oregon. And, when you lose a game later in the year, if you didn't have that loss under your belt, maybe you react to that a little bit different. Maybe you still feel a little bit better about yourselves. That second loss, particularly for a Pac-12 team these days, that basically is a knockout blow in terms of the playoff race. So, if that Stanford game was so close, if that had gone a different way, and just Coach Moorhead, going through what he did, going through what he went through, and how that no doubt impacted the quarterbacks and the offense as a whole. I mean, you're basically were down a man on staff for weeks at a time there. And I just think, that gets lost a little bit as a factor last year. And I think is a bigger factor than maybe the attention it's gotten would suggest, because it hasn't gotten very much attention. And I think it probably had a big impact on that team.
Well, it appears that the attention's really going to be on the defense with Lanning. You bring over, Tosh Lapoy as well. I mean, Lanning has familiarity with him in Alabama, and Lanning's he's a linebacker coach. And you got two dogs on that side of the field. I mean, you got Justin Flo, you got Sewell.
I'm here to tell you there's more than two.
Yeah, there's more than two, but how are they starting to look right now?
Yeah, no, I think, I mentioned when this staff took over, the excitement of some of those offensive skill guys figuring, hey, maybe the ball will be in the air a little bit more. We can have some fun under this staff. I think, those linebackers and the defense as a whole, by the time the national championship game gets played, they know Dan Lanning's going to be in be their next head coach. So they're watching that game with a whole new level of interest. Right. And I think a lot of those guys came away from that game going, oh, we're about to have a good time like playing in this defense. Yeah. And I think, Jeff Bassa is another guy he was a safety last year who moved down to linebacker after Flo was hurt and some other injuries. And he's a really good player. Jackson LeDuc is another guy at inside linebacker who's a really good player. So it's this awesome convergence of, a coach who really knows how to get a lot out of that position, and then one of, if not the deepest position groups on the whole roster. I mean, it's really going to be a fun match to see kind of how all those guys are utilized. And, obviously Flo and Sewell, it's kind of like we were talking with Bo Nix. Those guys were the 5-star guys in high school, so I certainly understand the attention and the expectations on those guys. And maybe they do end up being like the 2 starters, but there's a couple other really, really good players in that room as well. Keith Brown, who was a 5-star recruit and an Oregon kid a couple years ago, in the mix there as well too. But then you look at it like the Brandon Dorlus is on the defensive line, and DJ Johnson, who's an edge player, who Kayvon Thibodeau's gone. You need some other threats coming off the edge. I think DJ Johnson's a guy that they feel like can be one of those threats. And, the guys who play nickel and are kind of going to be all over the place defensively. I mean, there's just all those guys have this sense that this, the way this defense is going to attack people based on what they saw Georgia do when Dan Lanning was there just really has them excited about the potential of this unit.
Yeah.
And any time, these guys know as well as anyone that, when people across the nation think about Oregon, they think offense. And so they love the chance to maybe show that that's not all this program is as well. I think guys feed off that as well, wanting to kind of prove that this isn't only a program that can put some points on the board. And maybe it's a program that sometimes the defense is actually the strength of the team at times as well.
And it's really odd because over the years, Oregon has had some individual studs on defense.
For sure.
You go back, you had some stud D linemen. You got Nada last year. Nada.
Yep.
You got some Buckner. Buckner. You got Okuda. At cornerback. Did Okuda play there?
No.
What was it? Not Okuda. What's the other? Not Okuda. What's the other guy that he tore his ACL? He was a top cornerback.
Ifo Ekpe-Olumu, yeah. And he played in the secondary with Terrence Mitchell and Troy Hill, who are a couple guys who are still playing in the league now. So, I mean, I think to your point, this has been a team that has produced some defensive players too.
They just haven't put it all together.
Yeah, and those years, like Hill and Ekpe-Olumu and Mitchell were playing. I think they were seniors the year Mariota won the Heisman. So, of course, the offense is going to be in the spotlight. Regardless of how the defense played. Oh, no. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, for as much as good as those offensive teams were in, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, there was some good defense that was being played as well. And even some guys that didn't end up being household names. But, those were the years that, like DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead were playing together on the D-line, and they're both
crazy.
They're both dudes in the league now, right?
Dudes, real dudes.
And so – maybe that group didn't get the attention maybe it deserved. And so it certainly is not to suggest that if this Oregon defense, is known as the signature unit on the team, it'll be the first time Oregon has ever played defense. Because, I think as that list of players proves, that, there's been guys around here before. It just always seems to get overshadowed by the offense.
Well, you got the offense, you got the defense, but let's kind of get your thoughts going into September 3rd against the Bulldogs. Again, defending national champion, a lot coming back. I mean, obviously we've lost a lot of players to the NFL, but still, it's still a Kirby Smart-led team with Stetson Bennett coming back as a championship quarterback. What are your thoughts in terms of how Oregon neutralizes Georgia and has a chance of winning this game here in Atlanta?
Yeah, it's, neutralizing the defending national championships on what's essentially a home game. It seems like a tough hill to climb, but that Ohio State game last year was just so eye-opening. I think for, externally, but also internally. I mean, if there was anybody that had any doubts going to Columbus, you probably don't have doubts, going to Atlanta the way you did, at least the extent you did last year, because you proved that you can take on, a top 5 program in all of college football on their turf and beat them. And, and Thibodeau didn't play in that game. Flo didn't play in that game. And so, that's a game where, again, somebody like me going into it was looking at all these factors like, wow, like how are we going to pull this off? Like, I don't mean to doubt this team, but like, you just start doing an objective analysis of all the factors at play and be like, wow, this is going to be a tough hill to climb. And it's it's no different going into this game. And yet when, that belief that you can draw from having done it just last year, there's so many guys back. I mean, I have to think there's a different sense of like, all right, it doesn't, with all due respect to whoever we're playing, we've shown we can win this game, a game like this. Let's capitalize on that belief and that foundation. Now every matchup's different. Every year's different. I don't mean to suggest it's an apples and apples comparison, but, to me, kind of the specifics aside, just the belief that guys have to have built up off that Ohio State experience, I think has got to be helpful.
Yeah, no, that's interesting for sure. I mean, I guess my question for you is, you're right. Like, I think if I recall correctly, Oregon was a 14.5-point dog against Ohio State. They're 17-18 this game. Not a huge difference. Won a lot of money on Oregon that day last year, so that was lovely.
We both did, Graham. We both did.
Yeah, we had a good day. But I guess, if
we could run out onto the field September 3rd with a 17-0 lead on the scoreboard, that'd be awesome. I'll take it.
Yeah,
you will.
Anybody will. Yeah. I'm sure. With that game, I think Oregon kind of pushed Ohio State around in the trenches at times, particularly in, with their own running game. I mean, they were able to bust some big holes for Dye and those guys. I guess, how do you think Oregon matches up on the defensive line? That seems like an area. Obviously, they lost Thibodeau. I know they have a lot back at linebacker, but is that kind of maybe the weak spot in the defense, or is that? Well,
I think the point you bring up is kind of the other side of the coin to the point I was making about Ohio State is, okay, maybe you're right that this program maybe caught Ohio State off guard a little bit with how competitive the Ducks were in the trenches that day. And now you've lost that advantage because, for as much confidence as you can gain from your own performance last year, you're also not sneaking up on anybody too. Georgia watched that game too, I'm sure, and is going, hey, look what these guys did last year. Don't don't get caught like Ohio State got caught.
Sure.
If you want to argue that perhaps that's what happened. I do think that those additions on the defensive line, for one thing, you've got some returners that Brandon Doris mentioned earlier. Keon Ware-Hudson, Popo Amagavai is a guy who has played a lot of football in the middle of the line. But, that was addressed too in the transfer portal. And a kid named Taki Taimani, who was from UW, or one of Oregon's main rivals, maybe Oregon's main rival if you ask some of the fans around here. Came over here from Washington. He's lost some weight, slimmed down, said he still feels really powerful, but a little bit more explosive to enhance that depth. Casey Rogers and Jordan Riley, a couple guys who, as I mentioned, followed their position coach from Nebraska here. And so, there are some bigger bodies that have helped enhance that depth. I've never watched Georgia practice. I watched Georgia play one game last year. It was a national championship game, so I was as impressed as anyone. I can't speak to how that matchup's going to play out. I do know that when I watch the Ducks practice and I watch that front seven with all those bodies up front, with all those linebackers, I think, man, this Oregon team's in a pretty good spot compared to most Oregon teams that I've covered in terms of the depth and the talent in the front seven. Now, what that means September 3rd, we'll find out. But
sure.
I just mean from a Ducks perspective, I just think there's a lot of ability up there in that defensive front seven.
Yes. Yeah, I'd agree. And the other thing I was just going to ask you is, this game is really going to come down to if Oregon's able to be competitive, like a lot of people believe they can, and I think they'll be competitive. I mean, I'm not saying that Georgia's going to blow them out or anything like that. I think that's preposterous when you're playing another Division I team that's the caliber of a Oregon. But what playmakers do you think have to make plays during this game on the Oregon side that Georgia fans should be keying in on and looking at, saying, okay, this is the guy we got to neutralize to be able to make this thing happen?
Yeah, that's a tricky one because, again, I watch this team practice every day. So, I don't want to say something even inadvertently that.
Oh, I hear you.
That just pops out. I think the quarterback,
the obvious kind of
the quarterback for any team, is going to drive things, right? So,
right.
I think more than anything with those guys, it's don't make a big mistake, particularly when you're playing in that environment. You got to try to avoid a turnover because if the momentum gets going with that crowd, and the crowd's can be like 90-10 or something, that you put yourself in a hole that gets really hard to climb out of. But again, I think, and I mentioned the portal being helpful on defense. I think offensively, the numbers at receiver were a little low. There are some guys, Troy Franklin, Dante Thornton, Seven McGee, Chris Hudson, who last year there were some injuries of some veterans at receiver, and those young guys had to get pressed into action. So they had to kind of come of age pretty quickly, and they're back now. But the portal helped there too. Chase Cota, who played at UCLA, his dad was actually a defensive back here at Oregon. Chad Cota on the '94 team that went to the Rose Bowl and was kind of the kind of big breakthrough team in the trajectory of Oregon football. But Chase Cota is a guy who's played a lot of football and I think is reliable. And Caleb Chapman's a guy who came over from A&M and dealt with a lot of injuries there. If he can stay healthy, I think he's a guy who can really stretch the field. And he's shown that he can go deep and he can go up and get a ball too. So I think there's been some confidence there. I think this tight end group, again, you had a couple of young guys in Terrence Ferguson, Maliki Mataval, who kind of like the receivers were thrown into it last year. And Mataval, I think, caught a touchdown in the Ohio State game. Another couple of guys who kind of the foundation was laid last year and now feel like, okay, if they can be the next step, they can be, playmaker types that change a game and are a tough matchup there. So the running back room looks a lot different because C.J. Verdell graduated and Travis Dye transferred. So, I think we'll see once we get into games, kind of what kind of rotation they hit on and which guys they choose to go with, because there's 4 or 5 guys right now that are getting looks to see kind of who might be the best fit there.
Well, Rob, we don't want to get you in too much trouble. First of all, I think we envy you because Kirby doesn't allow anybody inside his practices. But
they get like 8-minute viewing periods.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it, and I think to his credit, he came in and was like, yeah, this is new, this is different, but let's see how it all works. And so, I think as long as I'm not an idiot, hopefully I don't jeopardize anything. So appreciate you guys for not making me be an idiot.
One question I do have before you go, just I've kind of been going back and watching some Oregon tape from last year and stuff, and obviously the season was very good with the exception of the 2 times they ran into Utah, right?
Yeah.
And Utah ran more kind of 12, 13 personnel, 2-3 tight end sets than anybody in the country. Like, I don't know. Is there any natural sort of Band-Aid that's happened, or, you know, anything that like you could point to as an Oregon fan and be like, oh, well, you know, that they might be better prepared to handle some of those heavy fronts? Because I'm sure Georgia's going to throw some of that at them early just to see.
Yeah, I don't know much about Georgia, but yeah, I mean, what you hear about those tight ends it sounds pretty impressive. So, yeah, I mean, if it was still the same coaching staff, I mean, I think you'd be looking at, okay, hey, you got to do some different things than you've been doing. When it's a whole new staff running all new stuff, you know, and they weren't here for those games. I mean, I'm sure they watched them, and I'm sure they have a sense for what went wrong. I would assume they also feel like they have different ways kind of existing in their playbooks that would have maybe handled that better than, you know, how things went last year. I mean, it was also last year was just so weird with, you know, once all the rumors started about Coach Cristobal and you know, it started to be a little bit of a shadow over things too. So, you know, but yeah, you know, fresh start for all the guys, fresh start with the new staff. You know, again, I think it'd be hard to say they had this sense that this is a deficiency of this personnel group that,
Sure,
you know, they have to really move a lot of things around to try to address.
No, that's totally fair. The only reason I ask is like I've had a few people ask like, why is the spread so big in this game? And I've been looking for the answer to that, and that's like the only thing I've kind of been able to come up with is like, well, maybe. But you know, like you said, it's a different staff, it's a different season, it's different personnel in a lot of cases. So I just felt like I had to scratch my curiosity on that one. But
I'm not a gambler, which I would like to reiterate if our compliance people are watching this or listening to this. But yeah, I mean, hey, it's a new coach. You know, it's gonna be his first game as a head coach. You got a new quarterback. All new systems, both sides of the ball. These guys have had to learn. You're going to be playing in a really tough environment. You know, I'm not a gambler, but, you know, I certainly expected to have the Ducks go into this game as an underdog in kind of the public mind. So,
sure.
Right. Well, Rob, thanks for joining us here on the 100 Sanford podcast. We really appreciate your time. But before you go, please tell our listeners how they can hear more from you, hear more about the Ducks, and let us know.
Sure, yeah, I appreciate it. I'm on Twitter at Duck Football, Duck singular, not Ducks, just Duck Football. I write for our website, goducks.com. I have a podcast called the Mighty Oregon Podcast that's mostly kind of historically focused on former players, former games, things like that. It's not just football. So not that I expect Georgia fans to flock to consume a bunch of Oregon content, but I appreciate.
Surprised.
you talk about Ruben Drones yet? That's one of my favorites.
I love it. Yeah, Ruben. Yeah, all-time great here. Yeah, I mean, Ruben's one of the all-time great what-if stories here too, because he broke his leg when he was here, and if he'd stayed healthy, I mean, that would have been the '98 season, and Achilles Smith was the quarterback. That was his senior year, and that offense was just crazy. And Ruben was going for like 200 a game. And then he broke his leg, and things went sideways. But
that's my guy, Rube.
Yeah, that Oregon started to have breakthroughs, like when Joey Harrington was quarterback the next few years after that, and then and on and on. But that '98 team, talent-wise, was going to be really, really special if not for some injuries. Peter Sturman, another guy who played in the NFL and he's now a coordinator, I think, at Cal. Was a linebacker on that team who got hurt and didn't play that year, you know, so played without your best linebacker. And then when Ruben got hurt, you know, great piece on offense. That '98 Oregon team was going to be something special.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you, Rob. We appreciate you again. And, anytime you want to come on the 100 Sanford podcast, you're more than welcome.
I appreciate you guys. Yeah. If you run into me at the game, definitely say hi.
All righty. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Yep. Take it easy.
You too.
Trev.
Well, guys, that was Rob Mosley. What are your initial thoughts of his breakdown with the Oregon Ducks?
I think, just briefly, I believe him. I think Georgia should respect their front seven on defense. Just the linebackers alone, they got some studs at linebacker.
They got studs, yeah.
They got at linebacker. I'm not sure what they have up front on D line, but it would. I'd take a look into that. just judging. That's the one thing that stood out. You know what I mean? That he seemed to be somewhat. He seemed to be confident that the front seven could compete. Not necessarily whoop up on Georgia, but be respectful.
Yeah, I think, and I understand where he's coming from 100%. I think, though, comparing facing Ohio State and Georgia, I get that they're both, top 5 teams and you're going into a hostile environment and all of that, but like that Ohio State team was not good on the line of scrimmage last year. We saw Michigan beat them up. We saw Utah gash them for 42 or 49 in the Rose Bowl. I mean, they couldn't really hang with teams that were physical at the line of scrimmage and the point of attack. So I think Oregon's offensive line is good. We know Cristobal made a priority of recruiting that group, but the front seven, as much respect as I have for Flo and Sewell, I also just look at what Georgia did to SEC linebackers last year with Brock Bowers and with Kenny McIntosh as well in the passing game. And I think some of the things they did with James Cook to slip linebackers up. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of speed that those guys are going to have to cover in space if they want to play, kind of some of their base package stuff, or if they want to be aggressive against the run, then they're going to have to risk getting linebackers matched up on Bowers and Gilbert and some of these guys. And it's not a discredit to Oregon's linebackers. It's just I don't really know of many linebackers anywhere that are going to have a good time with that.
I agree with you, but I'm going to just push back just a little bit. And really only because Tosh Lapoy's there and Lanning are there, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of familiarity, right, of understanding a Georgia-based offense where I don't think it's the same outlook as you and I both looked at that Ohio State game last year, right? I mean, we both looked at it and said there's no way Ohio State's just going to beat down Oregon in terms of that front and everything else. They didn't have it. But when you look at this game, you got to believe that Lanning has had, 8 months to try to think about how to slow this team down. He was in the film room. He worked with these guys. They understand possible weaknesses that Georgia may or may not have. Do I think that Oregon keeps up with the Dogs? I really don't. But I do believe they can cause some hiccups. And I think when it comes down to utilizing the tight ends as much as we think, I don't know if it's going to come down to that. I think they're going to try to just run the ball down their throat if they really can to set up some of those opportunities to throw the ball downfield and utilize the tight ends. But I think going in and just utilizing that without the run game, I don't know. It's going to be a tough chore against anybody. I would think so.
Let me get out my notes here.
Oh man, you're gonna break out the mead.
No. All right. So look, I mean, when I said earlier, I think that's the thing, the tight end thing. I think it's not just about Georgia tight ending them to death in the pass game. It's about those dudes. Darnell Washington will take some heads in the run game as a run blocker, and it's those dudes are tough to penetrate into the backfield against. And I go back to that Utah game last year. I watched it the other night. I charted all the plays. 12 personnel, 11, 12, 13, 12, 13, 13. I think you're just going to see Georgia come out heavy fronts. And I agree. I think they're going to run the ball until Oregon does something to stop it. And once they make that adjustment to stop the run, then you see Brock and Darnell and Eric going over the top, or you see McIntosh on the wheel route out of the backfield, or whatever it is they dial up. But I don't think you can. Georgia. I think Oregon's offense has a better chance of causing some problems for Georgia's defense than I think the other way around. I think Oregon's defense is going to have a hard time just with the size of that offensive line.
I agree there.
But that's just my take.
That's a good point. It's just you just see the difference in Oregon. Oregon is going to take that field, and they're going to line up, and they're going to be like, "Oh my God." Look,
It's different.
for real. That's how it is. Like I understood. I was on the field. I've had an interesting life. I've been media. I've scouted. So I was on the field after the 2012 game with Georgia, Alabama. And after the game, I'm walking around on the field with Chris Samuels, and he was helping Alabama at the time. And he was just pointing out, we was just talking about the team, and he's just pointing out these Bama kids. He was like, that's a freshman. That's a freshman. He ain't played yet. That's a freshman. These kids were huge.
Yep.
Huge. Like you knew, you looked at the difference, and you looked at Georgia at the time. That was the difference.
Right.
I'm looking at those kids. I'm like, man, these are not real regular humans. These are like superhumans. Like Georgia offensive line, like they had, guys, guards that are, 6'2", 295. Like it was a whole big difference. I think that's going to be the difference on September 3rd as well. We're probably just going to be physically imposing, and that's going to be the difference. You know what I mean? They're gonna line up and be like, we haven't seen this before. Maybe USC. I don't know if USC churns them out like they used to. But they're gonna see something that they haven't seen in a while. Come September 3rd, just personnel wise.
Well, I know we got 2 weeks, fellas, before the first game. We got another show before then, and we'll dig into it even deeper. I just really wanted to bring Rob on because I knew he had, practice access, which we never get at UGA, but I knew he'd be able to bring some intel, be able to talk about some things that, most people can't. But I did want to touch upon something, like a little fun thing. Okay, so we talked about the scrimmages, and we talked about how this team is progressing, and that's the key word that Kirby keeps using in his press conference. But then I thought about something. We know that Stetson is the engine for this season. For all you folks out there that don't believe it, look, Stetson's the engine. How Stetson goes is how this team is going to go. Matter of fact, Stetson for Heisman. Who besides Stetson is the most indispensable player on this Georgia team that you cannot afford to lose?
Jalen Carter.
I was thinking about that.
What did you say? What'd you say, Troy?
Definitely Jalen Carter. Definitely.
Man, I thought about him too. So I'm gonna change it. I was thinking Jalen too.
You can go Ringo as well.
I got an interesting one for you. I'll go Van Pran.
That's one too, because he been center for 3 years. 2 years, 2 straight years. He been a starting center for 2 straight years. Yeah.
Well, I think it was just last year, but I mean,
he's a stud.
Like Trey Hill.
He's been shot caller for a minute.
And Warren Erickson is the backup center, and Warren Erickson has played hard, and he's played a lot of good football for the University of Georgia. I'm not here to talk down on him, but I think there's a little bit of a pretty good sized drop off at that position if you lose SVP. It's just there's just not that many dudes that can snap the ball on the team
and call out the signals at the line.
100%. Yep.
Wow.
I'm gonna say, dang it, he took my guy. That's hard, man. I was thinking Jalen. I think as soon as I read it,
it could be Ringo as well. It can definitely be Ringo, because say if he goes down, you very young at DB, very young.
Mm-hmm.
I think Georgia's in trouble if they lose a boundary guy.
Wow.
I agree.
I just thought about it. I don't know. I threw it out there. What were you going to say, George?
I'm going to go with Broderick Jones.
That's a good one.
I'm going to go with Broderick Jones. You gotta have. He's there for a reason. He's young enough for somebody to have taken that job if they were good enough. Obviously, nobody else is good enough, and so you don't lose left tackles and be okay. Typically, there'll be some drop off.
I understand why you said that because Broderick Jones has basketball feet. You don't see that too much as O-line.
Yeah, he's a freak.
Well, and I mean, yeah, just like when he came in at left tackle, the amount of noise that Will Anderson made after that
was very solid.
Minimal. Yeah.
Very solid. He had that man.
People talk about Will Anderson like he's one of the best players in college football, and I'm not here
for good reason.
That for good reason, right? But then I think just if I turn on the tape of the last 2.5 quarters of the national championship game, then I have to start talking about Broderick Jones like he's one of the best players in college football as well.
And that man in cell block E
did one-on-one. What did you say, Trey?
He said he had him in cell block E.
He had him in the hole.
Cell block E, dog.
Okay, so I'm going to throw my name out there, and I thought Graham might hit on this one because Graham said, "Oh wait, I got one for you." I'm going to say Kenny McIntosh.
Oh, that's not what I was going to say.
And here's my reasoning for it, because we didn't talk about it at the beginning of the show. I mean, we had the scrimmage. Andrew Paul goes down with a torn ACL. He's out for the year. You got Kendall Milton. He's nursing a hamstring, even though it's a grade 1. Kirby said he's back. Really, he could have played a little bit this past scrimmage. For me, it's precautionary. But what Kenny McIntosh brings to this offense is what a mixture of what Cook, Zeus, Kenny, Kendall all brought to the offense as a running back last year. I think if you lose him, you lose that element in the backfield of what he's able to do. I mean, because you can split him out. You can run those wheel routes. You can run them between the tackle. You can run them off tackle. You can do so many things with him because he's so dynamic. I think if you lose him, you lose a complete element of your offense. And I believe they got to keep that kid healthy some way.
Got to keep him healthy. I just think just the nature of the position, I think we're going to see a lot of Dejon this year.
And I was just about to say that if Kenny go down, we still good. That Dejon
a lot of him this year. And so hope it don't happen. You know what I mean, but
he a 229 kid. He bought it.
I mean, I'll give you an interesting stat, or
pull him up, dial him up.
I got you dialed up. Kenny McIntosh had the highest receiving grade of any player on Georgia's team last year.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
See, I come prepared.
Every bit of Swift. He remind me. Ever since I doubt it. Ever since I seen that Arkansas State run, he got that Swift in him.
Yeah, he runs routes like a slot receiver.
That dead leg was vicious. And the wheel route. What angle route that was? At Tennessee, oh my God, he did Henry so dirty.
Yeah, and I mean that the wheel route against Arkansas, and the Tennessee 2 years ago when they got his team.
I've told people, anybody that will listen, that he's been my favorite back since he's been there that we've had, and that's my praise because we've had some good backs, but he's my most trusted back since he's been there. He showed me from day one that he always goes forward, and he's a hell of a receiver. You know what I mean? That's I can't ask for much more than that. And he has some. He's faster than what you probably think. So, I enjoy watching him play. He's an enjoyable player to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, my thing with McIntosh, to be honest, there were times early in the first half of last season where they would run him in third and short yardage situations, and I would kind of question it. And then something happened in like November of last year where all of a sudden, like if Kenny McIntosh was in on 3rd and 2, didn't matter. He might have got hit in the back. There might have been a free rusher, coming at him in the backfield. Like he started moving piles in a new way. And he's always been super athletic and he's always been very physical for his size. But like I personally, at least, maybe other people were more in tune to it than I was. But all of a sudden I started noticing like this dude's that fast, can do all this in the receiving game. And he's carrying defenders and moving piles 4 or 5. Yeah. Like he is –
some of his stiff arms are powerful.
Yeah.
Like Brandon said, the Tennessee game, that touchdown he had, he literally took about 4 guys with him to the end zone.
Yeah. And, I mean, that run he had on, that little trap kind of play where when they first got down to the red zone after James Cook's big run in the national title game and they handed to him the next play and, he busts up in there to make it like 2nd and 2 and they shove it in. But like that, that was a physical run. And I think he got a face mask call on that run as well. And he was still running through.
Yeah.
I feel like we finally have, not to throw nobody under the bus, we got a good running back room, but we've been missing that alpha dog running back since Swift was here. He was top dog. Like, you just know. And finally, it seems like we have that top dog running back again, which everybody kind of see Kenny is running back 1. It feel like we have that alpha again in the room.
I'll agree. I mean, even Kirby talks about it. Kirby's been talking about Kenny all off season long, about how he's gotten stronger, his body's under control. Everything is
great camp.
Great camp. Yeah, I mean, that's all he's been talking about. So that made me think about who was the most indispensable player, because I believe that there's so many things they can do with him. We can run all these different sets and different personnels and, maybe bring in a Dylan Bell and, all these other things.
When you get done, I got another player. I thought George was going to say, I got another player for you when you get done. And dispensable, I got one more for you.
Go ahead. Shoot it.
Nolan Smith.
Yes. Definitely.
Nolan Smith.
We got to have him.
Leadership, all that, the captain, him. Definitely him.
Yeah.
I just thought about it. Just how you said how Kirby talks about Kenny always. Definitely Nolan Smith. He's indispensable for sure.
Got to set that edge.
Yes.
Get guys his energy. Like he's definitely. We got to keep him around. Keep him.
How he's vocal with the defense. He's the leader in that locker room. Like that'd be hard to replace.
That's acceptable. I'd agree. No doubt about it.
I'll give you another one is Christopher Smith. I think
that was my second one, Graham. That was my second guy.
One too.
He was mine out there.
Yeah, with those inside linebackers being young early in the season, I think
you need a elite safety, like you said, the vet.
Yeah, and
how the secondary being so young. Because Ringo he just his second year. Chris Smith been there he's been the starting safety for 3 straight years for Georgia.
Yeah.
And he knows the system, the scheme in and out. And you need a guy like him because we have 3 fresh linebackers. 3. And we got literally 3 fresh D linemen.
Like Kirby surprised me. But now I've always felt like he's always kept it. He always keeps it real with the press, but he still surprised me when he admitted that how many freshmen were going to have to play, and like that they were going to have to serve a role, and then there was some guys that aren't freshmen that are still young that going to have to play even more of a role, So that was. That was eye opening, and so we're really young, like for real, not just loosely speaking, we are a very young team, and so the more vets you have out there, at a position like Chris Smith, he's gonna be responsible for making sure those guys are lined up, in front of him and to the side of him. You know what I mean? So he's a very important piece for our defense, like overall. He's gonna be like the quarterback back there.
Facts.
I was very happy he came back because Seam had left, linebackers left. I'm like, okay, so and DK had left, so I'm like, okay, I'm just waiting on. Hopefully, Chris Smith come back so we don't have like too much young in the secondary. Like just completely a whole different secondary. Like when he came back, I was like, yes, we have a vet that can coach the young guys, get them lined up right, everything in a situation like that, because we're going to be very young, very. I think this is the youngest I think Kirby had a team.
Oh, by far. By far, it's the youngest team so far.
You're replacing like 8 starters on defense?
Yeah.
8 starters, because they're replacing the whole D-line, because the crazy thing about it, Jalen Carter didn't start last year.
I mean, yeah, that's the tough thing. Here's one for you that Josh, Dog Stats, who I do the Dog Central show with, he dropped this on our SEC East preview today. Georgia returns more players than any team in the country with a 70-plus PFF grade. They returned 20 guys with a 70-plus PFF grade.
And that's great numbers. That's great numbers.
Yeah, I mean, like some of those guys haven't seen a ton of snaps, but when they have been in the game, they know what to do. They know their role and they assign it.
That's what's that's what the most interesting thing, because you lose 15 guys, 16 guys to the NFL. I mean, to replace them with guys that grade out that well. Now, mind you, they were also on the field with those other 15 guys at the same time. So it's a little bit different when Nakobe Dean's out there telling you what to do, where you're going to be. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, or else you're going to be on the sideline versus having to come in and do it yourself. So that's the hope that they can actually – I think that's what Kirby's really been talking about, right? Can we get ourselves to that level where we hold ourselves accountable and we gel and become that type of team just like the 21 team was? So I think they can. I'm looking forward to it, and we're almost there, fellas. We're almost there.
10 more days. 10 more days.
Well, anybody else got anything else before we get up out of here today?
Not much. Good show, guys. Got some good insight to the Ducks, and I'm getting revved up, baby.
I hear you. Yeah, we had some minor technical difficulties. We'll see how everything worked out, but I'm excited. We'll dig in deeper next week to the Dogs. Oregon game coming up.
Got numbers changed. That's how you know we get down to crunch time. People changing numbers.
Who changed numbers before we go?
Reed changed his number. Jackson Meach changed his number, and your boy changed his number. Marcus Rosemead went to number 1.
Ooh, I like that.
He's gonna look like Messaquoi.
Okay.
He changed his number to number 1. Arik.
Gonna look like my boy Mo Mass out there.
And I figure Arik was gonna do this. He went to number 7.
Nice.
And you know who wore 7 last year?
Nice.
And Jackson went to number 9.
Nice.
Bet you number 7 this year has more receiving yards than number 7 last year did.
I was not gonna say
fired, Duck.
I was not gonna say
that'd be sweet.
I just hope somebody had called it.
If you're an Alabama fan, you can reach me at 100 Sanford on Twitter.
Oh God, no, you Alabama fan gonna come because they sensitive.
All right, fellas, man. Let's get up out of here, man. And as always, we'll see you at 100 Sanford. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Right now.
Thank you for listening to the 100 Sanford Podcast. Tune in weekly to hear fresh content from the 100 Sanford Podcast every Thursday, but also with some pop-up shows every now and then as news breaks. You can also follow the content on our website, www.100sanfordpodcast.com, and email us at dogs@100sanfordpodcast.com. Lastly, reach out to us on social media streams. For Twitter, it's @100Sanford, but on IG, TikTok, Facebook, and other accounts, It's 100 Sanford Podcast. All right, folks, that's it. And as usual, see you at 100 Sanford.